Good afternoon. We're live here in the CrittendenPress studio with another news talk from the CrittendenPress. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Marion Pit BBQ, probably one of the finest barbecue joints in the South if you've never been by. And they were doing carry out before carry out was cool. Look, we've even got their picture right here. This is the little shack.
Hey,
we're COVID free here too at the CrittendenPress. As most of you tune in regularly know that we have our plexiglass here in between us, although we're not 6 feet apart. And we're going to visit today with Vince Clark, Superintendent of Crittenden County Schools. And he has a great deal to share, as most of you know and have heard already. Crittenden County, as well as all of Kentucky, now out of class for the rest of the academic year. Mr. Clark, the logistics behind getting all this squared away is just secondary to the big issue of this virus and what it can do.
It is. I mean, it does. It puts the school leaders in a full court press to figure out last day for NTI, student last day. It's also when our staff contractual last days as well. And then what do you do for staff when kids aren't in the building, because classified staff or most classified staff can't work from home. But they have all been cooperative. They have all pitched in. They're all in, doing whatever it takes. I know we have a lot of classified folks that are doing painting projects. They're doing weed eating, they're mowing, they're organizing workrooms. There's just been project after project. We're getting a lot done there with our classified folks. Of course, our teachers are working, from home to engage our kids through NTI lessons. But, we continue to feed kids, preparing meals, delivering meals. In a safe, healthy way is a challenge, because it's hard to huddle those folks up, without getting in each other's space. But I'm really proud of our staff, the way that they stepped up during this crisis, because we've tried to do three things, and I know that I've said this before, but we've been committed to feeding kids. We've been committed to continuing learning for students. And we all recognize that nothing is more important than that in class with a teacher learning scenario. Nothing can beat that. But our NTI structure is a pretty good alternative to that. It wasn't designed, for 6 or 7 weeks of this, and I think we're feeling some of the challenges of it. But it's better than the alternative, and I really appreciate what teachers have done, the work that parents and grandparents have done to engage kids in meaningful, impactful lessons. And then the students, have answered the challenge as well. But I do want to continue to remind the students that they do need to continue with their NTI lessons. They need to make sure that they complete those lessons and they give their best effort every day.
And you mentioned NTI wasn't designed to be 6-8 weeks, whatever, but it was more of a snow day, 1 or 2 days. But now here you are, you're going to finish out the school year. We had an article in the paper this week in the CrittendenPress, and you had commented you think you'll be done by May 12th, I believe it was.
We've double checked those numbers today. We actually had a 1 o'clock administrators meeting with our team, going over our final dates, or our May dates for things. And yes, right now, of course, with board approval, the board will have to amend the calendar next Tuesday at our board meeting. But I'll be recommending that the last student NTI day will be Tuesday, May the 12th. So that means that we have, we're 3 weeks from yesterday. We're 3 weeks away from that date. So we will have, about 3 more weeks of school work that students will need to complete.
And once they do that, how teachers entering grades and things like that, that's going to be tough, isn't it?
It is, but the teachers have some, we've accumulated some days for the teachers, because the teachers work on a 185 contract. And the Commissioner of Education allowed us to use these NTI days as 7-hour days. And that's 420 minutes. And usually we count our instructional day as about 375 to 380 minutes. So the time that we've captured by using 420 minutes on these NTI days have created some extra work days for our teachers. So that does give our teachers time to evaluate the schoolwork that kids are doing. It does give them time to input grades in Infinite Campus for that, and it gives the office teams time to manage that and prepare the grade cards.
And it's, I would assume for most students, their GPA is very important, particularly those who are going to go on to seek advanced type degrees and things, for admissions into college. So it's not any time just to fool around and think this is a vacation.
Yeah, it's not a vacation. It's a time for learning. And like I say, our goal was to continue learning. And over this long period of time, there had to be new learning. Over winter snow days or ice days, 1 or 2 days could be review. But when you have 6-7 weeks, you have to introduce some new learning. And, that's just part of being a 21st century learner too. Most everyone that takes courses now in college or post high school, are doing some type of online virtual learning platform. So it's just something that kind of captures that learning opportunity.
I'll remind our viewers today that the program is brought to you by Marion Pit BBQ, one of the finest barbecue joints in the South, as attested by many magazines, including Southern Living. Some of the best sauce around. I know you've had a barbecue from down there, Vince.
1 or 2.
Yeah. They were doing drive-through before drive-through was cool, curbside pickup at Marion Pit BBQ, and now you just have Hatfields, no McCoys down there, and those folks have a long history with the school system, and if you need a barbecue sandwich on the way home, take a family pack home. Very good barbecue. Watch for their specials, ribs and chicken too on particular days during the week. They hang a sign up out front. Mr. Clark, just to kind of maybe fill in the gaps on some things from the article we had in the paper. We have smaller papers now because we don't have as much advertising because of all the business, and that's why your newspaper is smaller. So we're kind of supplementing what's in the newspaper with some of these things we're doing during the week, and appreciate our viewers for this. And I will say, Mr. Clark is well groomed. If you notice, his hair has been trimmed. Mine has not. He's found that his wife is pretty handy at that. Mine, I'm not ready to give her a pair of scissors anywhere near my ears or neck yet.
Yeah, and this was about 10 days ago, so you can imagine what it was then, when she gave the cut. But yeah, she purchased the clippers and let me know that I was getting a haircut.
Good for her. Now, to fill in some of these gaps of what we can expect going forward. Now, the way I understand it from our conversations, June 3rd, the governor said no more school activities. So that means sports, that means prom, that means graduation through the end of June, because that's when this academic year officially ends. So take us through what it might look like for prom, graduation, and beyond that.
Yeah. I really can't speak to prom at this point. I know before the governor's speech, I know that his conference call on Monday, the high school had postponed prom to June because you got to reserve the venues and you got to make plans and things like that. So prom really hasn't been part of our conversation with the high school. We've been talking about graduation. I can only assume that unless the high school is willing to do prom possibly in July, that would be a matter that's off the table at this point.
Because you're talking phase 2 even is 50 people. If we get to phase 2, we hadn't even got started on phase 1 of the benchmarks to start coming back together. So this could be pushed way out.
And those guidelines have really influenced what our plan is for graduation, because the previous week, Principal Irvin had done a good job of surveying our seniors, talking to parents in our community. We got some feedback from the Commissioner Brown on his student advisory about, let's try to wait in June or July and have a traditional in-person event. So we accepted that at that time.
That's what the students had told you they wanted.
Yeah, that's what they wanted. But then when the governor came out Monday and said everything's canceled in June, all activities are canceled for June, and then to do something in July, you must get through phase 1, which allows up to 10 people to congregate, and you must get through phase 2, which has a 50-person limit on that before you can consider that. And we just feel like that's highly unlikely.
Oh, it's almost insurmountable challenges between now and maybe next fall.
It is. So, what we came back up, and we know it's not what everybody wants. It's not ideal. It's really not what we want. I mean, we would prefer the in-person traditional event and capture that moment for those kids. But part of our conversation today was about holding a graduation ceremony on the original date of May the 22nd, Friday, May the 22nd, which would include some virtual components to it. And we're also working on sort of a graduation parade, which would involve some collaboration with our city and county officials to make sure that we can just create an event that is memorable for these students. There's such an outstanding, awesome, impactful group that we want to make sure that we do something special for them. And I know that the high school team has been working hard on that, and they continue to try more and more around that, which will be communicated out later. But we are looking at having a May 22nd event. We're looking at doing some type of virtual. It will involve some technology, but it will also involve possibly, the graduates in their vehicles taking a tour through Main Street up by Food Giant, possibly out around the park. That way their family and friends can line up and stay in their vehicle and celebrate them as they go through town. Hopefully we can coordinate something with WMJL to provide some music and some dialogue so that we can honor the individuals. I know Troy has said over there that they're willing to do whatever that they can. But I feel really confident that we can create something special.
Something memorable. Yes. Certainly it's good. Can you imagine? We'll both be gone, but at the 40-year reunion, or I assume we will, at the 40-year reunion of this class, gosh, what they're going to have to talk about. And it's tragic. Don't get me wrong. It's a tragedy because many of these rites of passage that we all look forward to our whole lives. It's like losing a wedding day, or a birth of a child. These are things that are so important to many, many people, and it's a tragedy we're losing it. Let's talk, just kind of conclude by talking about one last thing. First of all, I want to remind you that today's broadcast is brought to you by Marion Pit BBQ on Main Street, South Main Street in Marion. Stop by, watch for their daily specials. Chicken and ribs on different days of the week. They hang a sign out front, and some of the best sauce in the South. And I want to tell you, the sandwiches are this big now. They're really piling it on, and we appreciate Marion Pit BBQ. There's their picture here in our bookshelf. We keep it right here close by. It means that much to us, and we are COVID free right here. I want to remind everybody. Mr. Clark, and I know this is difficult to even project. Just like we said, last week you had planned for an in-person graduation ceremony, going to push it out farther down the road. But now, all those plans, the best laid plans are all gone. You never know from one day to the next. The work you did today, planning and trying to create a scenario that will work and fit, is gone tomorrow. Just depends on what happens. So what are we talking about? The ability to get back to normal before school goes back for the fall of 2020, for the next academic year. Can we expect to be in class? What is the projected start date? Early second week maybe of August?
Yeah, I think it was like August 12th, 13th, 14th, something like that.
What are the chances of that happening?
Yeah, well,
And what does it look like if and when we get back?
Yeah, we remain hopeful, just like we have remained hopeful up to this point that we would eventually have kids back in May. We were hopeful that, spring sports would convene for a little while. We were hopeful we could have a traditional graduation event. But that has not happened, and it appears at this point, those things are, definitely not going to happen this spring. We're working for the graduation, of course, on the 22nd, but not a traditional event. And then now, with the federal guidelines of phase 1 and phase 2, that will impact, when school starts and what the beginning of school looks like. I have a real concern about starting the school year off in an NTI situation, because teachers will have new students at that time. It's one thing to finish the year like we have with NTI, where teachers have the relationships. We actually had some PROM connection going on, through the school year with some snow days. So we had some familiarity with that. But starting off brand new, I have some concerns, and we are having conversations about, okay, if we have to delay school, what does that look like? Can we get 172 student days in between Labor Day and Memorial Day? We have looked at those. We briefly looked at those to see if it's doable, and it is doable. It would be a much different calendar than we currently have. Because you would sacrifice fall break, if you're starting later, the little single day breaks that we have in between would be eliminated. It would be a tight schedule, it would be a full court press, to get those days in, but it is doable. And, and I heard someone say today, is like, well, after we get through all the 7 weeks of NTI, the parents may be ready to give them to us, from Labor Day to Memorial Day. But I thought that was funny. But those are things that we're exploring, because we always have to prepare for option B and option C. Yeah. We're hopeful. Yeah. Hey, look, we're hopeful that school will start on the calendar that the board has approved in August. We're hopeful that football can start summer practice, and soccer and band, can get back to normal. But it's going to be a tall task. We're going to have to remain patient. We'll have to make measured decisions. We'll have to be methodical in how we, congregate people back in a safe and healthy way.
Do you have to test every student that walks in the building every day?
Well, I think there would be, some protocols in place, such as taking temperatures, evaluating, where they have traveled, evaluating if they have crossed paths with anyone that has had the virus, and just be informed with that. So, the school nurse, you think about the school nurse role in that, which in our school district, our Board of Education has strongly supported our school nurses and been committed to that. You think about all the things that we have in place now for student support that's in place, that our board, has committed to, is all really kind of amplified at this point, because it's so important.
Yeah. Folks, we're not going to be back to normal, for some time now. And I this morning when I got up, I checked my calendar first thing when I get up. It's Earth Day today. I'm sure you've probably heard that or seen it. And my first thought was, what on earth will today bring? Because every day is like everything changes, and it's what tough, what tragic, challenging times we live in right now, Mr. Clark. And we applaud what you're doing out the school, your administrators and your staff. And this is a tough time. And I know it's a tough time for those teachers who love their students. It's an emotional time for them. And it's an emotional time for the students, it's particularly those their senior year. Our hearts and prayers go out to those kids and the kids who are missing spring sports, some for their last season. It's just a tragedy. And again, our hearts and prayers go out to them. And I'll remind you today, Marion Pit BBQ, there's a little shack on South Main Street. Stop by for a barbecue sandwich. They are the presenters of today's event. Coach Clark, you got anything else? Coach Clark, Mr. Clark. I've known Known
Hey,
you so
that's-
long as Coach Clark.
That's okay. That's okay. Those are some of my good days.
Yeah.
Coach Clark was
Probably a lot easier figuring out what he was going to do defensively for the Rocket football team.
I don't know. Being defensive coordinator for Coach Starnes was
Pretty tough business.
Yeah, it was a high standard. But I want to echo what you said. We miss our kids. We miss our kids in our building terribly. We miss them so much. We miss seeing our teachers. Our teachers miss the interaction with our students and the collaboration with each other. Thankfully, we've got good technology that is the next best option, and we're utilizing that the best that we can, and we're thankful for that. But students, just know that we miss you. We think about you every day, and hopefully soon we'll get back together. For the rest of our parents and community, I do want to share that we do plan on continuing our feeding program. Our plan is to continue it through May and June, just like we're doing now on Mondays and Tuesdays, where we're handing out multiple meals to get kids through the week with breakfast and lunch. Memorial Day, we'll probably put a little wrinkle in that in some form, but we'll figure that out that week as well. Today is April 22nd. Graduation is now set for May the 22nd, so we're on a 30-day countdown for that event. Last day for students, student NTI, is May the 12th, and then the teachers will need a few days there to evaluate work and get their grades in and everything. But we'll start collecting Chromebooks, after May the 12th. So we want to focus on the learning, and then starting on May the 13th, we will have a plan for folks to start dropping their Chromebooks off at the school sites, and we'll collect those that way for the rest of that week and a few days the next week. And then we'll evaluate that, and then we'll probably do some home visits to collect. And let me remind folks that we'll be collecting Chromebooks and chargers, just like we handed them out.
I assume textbooks too.
Textbooks too will also be collected. And let me say, I know I talked to the principals today, and they do have a plan to collect items from lockers and things that were left in locker rooms and things. So on those dropouts, they hope to do an exchange. So if you left a winter coat or personal items in your locker, they'll be bagging that up for you, and they'll be happy to hand that off to you as we get our Chromebooks, chargers, and textbooks back.
So many things coming down the road. Stay in touch, stay in tune, read the CrittendenPress printed edition as well as our website, the CrittendenPress Online. And I will encourage you to view Friday's show. We're going to have, this is going to be very timely, as Senator McConnell today encouraged states to take the bankruptcy route as opposed to holding their hands out for the federal government to help. And that's big news. We're going to have a federal bankruptcy judge from Marion, Kentucky. Alan Stout is going to be here with us on the show on Friday, so tune in to that. That's at 3:30. Appreciate Mr. Clark coming in and giving us all of the details about what's going to be happening over the next 2 or 3 weeks as school begins to wind down and what we can expect as far as graduation is concerned. We want to thank also Marion Pit BBQ for presenting today's show, and stop by on your way home this evening and pick up a family pack. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Chris.